Anon here. Welcome on my channel. Guys, today I have a few guests on the line, and this is Cera, Leaftist and Psy. Hello guys.
Hey
Hello.
there.
Hello.
Hey guys, so like I asked you already, but you can tell the viewers, how are you today?
Yeah, pleasure to meet you all. I'm quite nice. I already talked to you, but yeah, I have no classes for the next 3 months or so. I'm feeling kind of anxious, but it might be fine.
Corona holiday. Well, lucky you, I have to work, but well, shit. How are you, Leaftist?
I'm all right. I was a bit hungover earlier today.
So I've heard, yes. Are you drinking something now?
Oh, I try not to drink anything until at night.
Okay, so detox today. And Sai, how are you?
Uh,
I'm okay, just a bit tired, man.
Yeah, same shit. Okay, so everybody's ready, so let's start. We will be talking about bipolar disorder today. And what is bipolar disorder? I've talked about it in previous podcasts with my other friends, but I will say like a short description. It's a manic depression in the past, it was called like that. It's a mental disorder characterized by periods of depression and abnormally elevated mood, so like mania and hypomania. Bipolar disorder type 1 is depression and mania, and bipolar disorder type 2 is depression and hypomania. So that's the short description. You can have few months of depression, then few weeks or months of hypomania or mania. Like I understand it, I've read like about it like that. I've been recently diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is like a schizophrenia mixed with bipolar. So I experience mania too, real mania, not hypomania. And it's hella right, but I wanted to listen, and I wanted to show my viewers your experiences, guys. So I think we'll start with Sarah. When were you diagnosed, and how does it look like in your case?
All right. I was diagnosed back in 2017 when I was 17 years old, but I started having panic attacks and I don't know, mental issues or social issues back when I was 14, 2014. And nowadays, I'm on medication since I had some problems that led me to almost being internalized. And I'm trying to I'm trying to get my life together. I'm trying to study and trying to improve and just let it slide, let it not affect my life in general.
Mm-hmm. And do you have like mania or hypomania?
I have type 2, which is hypomania.
Hypomania. Okay, so how does this show when you're
Uh,
hypomanic?
most
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, I have depressive episodes. Like they're the ones that have the most duration of them all. Like I can be mom's depressed, but when I do have the hypomania, the stages, like we call them manic stages sometimes, I feel like I'm more anxious, but at the same time, I have more will to do things. I have more will to wake up from bed and do my chores and do my daily routine without much problem. When I'm depressed, I'm not exactly sad. Like anybody who had to deal with depression or knows someone who has it knows about it. But I'll explain anyways. When you're depressed, it's not exactly like you're sad. You can be sad and you can feel sadness and depression at the same time, but they're not correlated. And as a bipolar, I feel like that. When I'm depressed, it's not like exactly as I'm sad, but it's more like I don't have will to do anything. And it's the polar opposite when I'm not depressed. When I'm in hypomania, I'm totally energetic. I sleep less. I sleep sometimes 4 hours a day or less,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm great. But sometimes it's also kind of bad because I have some impulsive behavior. I tend to act without much thinking, without much consideration. I'm sometimes rude, and sometimes I do things that I will regret later. And
Yeah.
both stages are really bad, but I would say that for social life and for work reasons, study reasons, being depressed is the worst because you're basically not a very functional being.
Yeah, I know. I get you, mate. I feel you. I've been manic like a few months ago. I wanted to open a big business, and I was like thinking that I would be famous and shit, you know. That was so silly. I almost did it. I almost like I even called the European Union for the funds for the machines that I needed to print the t-shirts, and oh my god. And I was thinking only about that. I couldn't sleep, you know. Yeah, but I get you. Hypomania is similar, little lesser version, like a mania light, right? But
Yes.
it can be a right too. So I feel you. We'll go to get to you later again. But now, Leaftist, can you please tell us about your experiences?
I was diagnosed in 2016, but I first experienced a depressive episode in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't actually know that's what it was at the time. It wasn't until much later on that I actually knew that's what that was.
Mm-hmm.
So I dealt with the depression for a long time, but I didn't really know about the mania. But then it was in late 2015 that I first experienced that. And it was just coming off of an episode of depression. Then I woke up, came downstairs, and I was just really excited and energetic. And I was talking to my girlfriend, and she just looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I think you're manic." Because she actually worked in the mental health field.
Oh, cool.
So she
Is she
knew.
a psychiatric?
She mainly worked in research.
That's
cool.
nice.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, can you tell us more, Leaftist?
Yeah, so the mania. I've got a lot of energy. Don't really feel any need for sleep. I days straight, sleep, 3 to 4 hours, do it all over again. I get all these ideas and all this motivation. So I start acting on all these plans, and next thing you know, I've got a bunch of half-finished projects, and I've spent $5,000 in 3 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
One of the more unpleasant things is when it gets really severe, my thoughts start to get a bit paranoid. So I get this feeling that, I'm being followed or being watched. I know that it's irrational even as I'm having these thoughts, but I still can't shake that feeling.
Do you have like example of your manic episode, like something like more?
Well, about a month ago, I was just, it was 3 o'clock on a Monday morning, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive 120 kilometers away to do some photography.
Well, did you?
I did, and none of the pictures really turned out because it turns out 3 in the morning is not a good time for doing outdoor photography.
Yeah, well, that's true. Although I want to buy a special camera for that because I love like urban exploration at night, but that's for the other podcast. Okay, thanks for now, Leaftist, and now Sai, please tell us something.
About bipolar disorder.
Yeah, about bipolar. Do you have mania or hypomania? Some experiences.
I mean, I have episodes, like manic episodes. I mean, I have bipolar disorder type 1, and I was diagnosed in 2016 when I was 17. And basically, what it's like for me is I really just feel like, I mean, this is a normal thought for most people, that my emotions are basically in control of me, not the other way around. And I had been taking psychiatric medication for about ever since I was that age. And it's like, what it does really is it suppresses your your general emotions, and you think like, oh well, I just don't feel sad 24/7. I don't feel angry at all. But let's say something, for example, like you get like a really shitty text, or something went bad with your ex, like for instance my ex. It's like, it just kind of like snaps in your head a bit. It just, you kind of start thinking irrationally, and your thoughts really just start getting to the point where they build up, and then you lash out. And when you lash out, well, I mean, maybe it was out of sadness and anger, maybe it was just, I don't know, pure rage, and you tend to do something you'll probably regret for the rest of your life. I know this has happened with me for multiple instances. I've been institutionalized 10 times in my life.
10 times.
Can't say that was the most pleasant experience from like ages 17 to 20.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I know that the audiences and our current guests and yourself are not really, I'm not sure where everybody's from, but me personally, I'm from America, and it depends on what state you're in. I can only really speak from my experience where I live. It's like some of the mental institutions are pretty much like appalling. It's like, if you ever seen like Gulliver's Travels, where they like, put them into the hospital, that was back in like what, 16th century, 17th century. Well, I can't say they changed much besides having lighting. That's really about it.
So I've heard about Americans, mental health care. Okay. So Cera, you can tell us where you're from.
I'm from Brazil.
Yeah, and Leaftist?
I'm from Canada.
Canada. Yay. Okay, so I'm asking because I wanted to ask you guys about your experiences, like Sai told us, but you guys can tell us your experiences with mental health care in your countries. Maybe Cera first.
All right. I was waiting for you to call me. I've never been institutionalized. I've almost been institutionalized back in 2 weeks ago, which led me to start taking my medicine again, which I hadn't been taking some while. But from what I've heard, it's mostly mixed up. Some people say it's great, like great in the sense that you got a full recovery, but not in the sense that it's a comfortable place to be. Of course, you want to be in your home. You don't want to be on a mental institution or a hospital. But I've also heard some people that say it's terrible. It's like a horror movie. But I don't know. The thing that I know the most is that the public system here don't provide us much in terms of psychiatric and mental help. We most usually have to try to search for the private system for that help. which I've been doing from the past, but nowadays, since we are on an economic recession, it's kind of harsh to do that. So I actually doing now medication and treatment via the public system.
Okay. I was curious about Brazil because, like I mentioned it before in previous podcast, I talked with Piola, who is from Argentina. I did a podcast with him about anxiety, and he said that Argentina has one of the best mental health care in the world. They have the most psychologists per capita, and everybody is chill when it comes to mental illness. Like, oh, all right,
Oh, that's great.
that's your business, yeah. And I wanted to ask about other like South American countries like Brazil. Yeah, that's bad to hear. In Poland, it's so
sorry.
it's okay. In Poland, it's so like, oh my god, it's lagging so much behind like Norway and Sweden and stuff like that, countries like that.
They say Norway is great, and actually now that I've mentioned it, I also remember something. There are some universities here that provide mental health programs and psychiatric free programs, like for the public, but they're very hard to find a spot. They're very hard to enter in the queue. I've tried many times with no success, but we do that here. We have the opportunity for those who are lucky, I guess.
Okay, so that's cool. How old are you, Sarah, by the way?
Oh, sorry?
How old are you?
19, almost 20.
Okay, so you haven't been hospitalized. Sorry, my English is fuck.
It's
But
okay.
oh well, you haven't been hospitalized, but you are very young. But I hope that you won't have to, because it's better to be in shape good enough so you can go to therapy and psychiatrists on your own, like and go home. Because hospitals, like, they are okay when you are in a really like bad state. I admitted myself last year, but I was lucky because I got into hospital where I could have my laptop, phone, charger, everything. So when it comes to these sort of things, we are better than USA, because in United States in many cases you cannot even have your phone, right?
Like anything that's considered contraband, basically anything that's a little pointy or a little glass you could break, that you could go and cut yourself, basically is all contraband. However, in some particular hospital, it really depends by county, state by state. Some are okay, some are horrible, some are just basically a concentration camp. Depending if you're a little favorite of the little, hospital, if you want to call it that, they'll sometimes even permit you to have belts where you could easily go hang yourself up. But hey, you gotta keep your pants up or something. So.
Yeah, and how it is in Canada?
So my experience is a bit limited with their inpatient treatment. I was actually only in the hospital overnight, and that was in the emergency department after a suicide attempt. After the psychiatrist spoke with me the next day, they canceled the 72-hour hold and sent me home.
70-hour hold, yeah?
So it's called a Form 1. It's a 72-hour involuntary psychiatric hold. And basically the purpose of it is to keep you in the hospital against your will until you're assessed.
Suicide watch, right?
Pardon?
Suicide watch.
Basically.
Yeah, like I've been held in hospital, like forced into hospital and held in against my will for 8 days, and we don't. Yeah, say.
I was just saying, actually, like that in America, similar to what Left was saying about what they called it in Canada. I know in America it's called a 5150, where you're involuntary hold in danger to yourself and others. However, they usually tend to feel that if they can't get you placed in a bed, where you usually sit in your room, usually in the hallway for, sometimes it's for 3 days, but usually sometimes there's a delay because those places are usually packed and it can go up to a week. So yeah.
Oh,
Hello, everyone.
okay. Hello, Glenn. Glenn is our special guest. I made like 2 podcasts with Glenn already. He's suffering from Aspergers, but he asked me if he can join, and I was like, no problem, mate. Feel free to talk with us, but we will focus more on bipolar disorder, okay?
Yes, of course.
Alrighty, so guys, like some of you have bipolar type 1 with mania, some have hypomania. And how does your depression looks like? Tell us more about it, Cera, please.
It looks, from my experience, mostly like regular depression. You don't show any much of signs. You usually don't know that you're depressed until you're really bad shape. Usually, if you're working or studying, you have difficulty to wake up. You will try to sleep more than 8 hours, sometimes the whole day if you have the opportunity. You don't want to
Hypersomnia.
study.
Yeah.
You don't want to study. You don't want to do your hobbies. You don't want to spend time in any projects because you fear you will fail, you will not succeed, which the total opposite when you have hypomania, because you want to do many projects. And it's like Leaftist said, you spend a whole amount of cash and then you see that you didn't do anything when you're depressed. It's a very frustrating state. And I only had you all were saying about suicide attempts. I had a few, and they are all depressive state. You're more prone to do it. You're more willing to do it, and it's generally really bad for you and your loved ones, people that are around you and want you to be for good.
Well, it's good that you don't get suicidal tendencies when you're manic, because then you might actually do it.
Yeah, that's the most how do I say? That's the worst, because the times when I got most close of it, the times when I almost did it, wherein I was in a manic state. Like, you have insane courage and you don't care about your life.
Wow. Well, do you like suffer from anhedonia too? You know what this is?
No, I don't know what it is.
Anhedonia is a state when you cannot feel any joy, like from the things that usually gave you like joy. Nothing makes you happy, stuff like that.
Usually when I'm depressed, I have some episodes like that, but I never heard the term, so I never paid much attention. But what usually happens is that when you're certain medication, like I used to take sertraline. I don't know if you guys know about that.
I heard about.
What is it? Yeah, it's kind of an antidepressant, but it's also used to people with epilepsy, like most antidepressants. And I remember when I was taking it, my life was kind of bad when I look at it now, but now then I wouldn't feel anything. The sertraline was a really bad medicine for me because I wouldn't feel joy, but I wouldn't feel sadness, and I wouldn't feel good, but I wouldn't feel bad. I was just like a robot and just staring and static. Like, it was
I
the
feel
worst.
like a lot of medication, like for mental illness, basically do that to you.
I mean, I can interject. I mean, I do take that medication myself currently. And yeah, I can pretty much relate to exactly what you're saying.
You're taking sertraline right now?
Yes, or it's also called Zoloft.
Oh, right.
Yes. It's an antidepressant, like you were saying, so yes.
Yeah, we have different names for medications here.
Another thing I hate is that they make the names so fucking complicated. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, they have a pharmaceutical name, then they have a brand name.
I'm taking medication that is called chloroprothixen. I was learning this name for a few days. Chloroprothixen, what?
Yeah, one of my pills is aripiprazole.
Oh, yeah, I heard
And
about it.
it took me like a week to just pronounce it correctly.
And you, Leaftist, what are you taking for depression, if anything?
I'm actually not currently on any medication for the bipolar.
Okay.
I used to take something called Latuda. It's an antipsychotic.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I just sat around doing nothing and got really fat.
I've been there, you know.
Yeah.
I fucking been there.
Like
That's a side
I wouldn't
effect.
be able to take those kind of medications just because that's what they do with you.
I know. In one
Uh.
particular hospital I was in, I was given Latuda. That was believed to help me. And after I was let out of the mental institution, I basically went home and I started screaming at the top of my lungs because it literally felt like something was crawling in my brain, and I actually had to go to the ER and tell them to sedate me. So I can just say I highly do not recommend that medication to people with certain psychiatric problems, as it actually can have the adverse effect on you, I believe.
Also, right now, as I was saying, I am currently taking medicine, but I didn't tell what medicine it is. I'm currently taking what we call here lamotringina, but I've just searched it, and they also call it outside here lamital, lamitor, leptico, nero, or neuro.
Never heard of it.
Holy shit.
Guys, I want to ask about one thing. Like, the problem with bipolar is that when you are depressed, you take antidepressants, but they elevate your mood. Then you get manic. You take, I don't know, lithium or whatever you guys take for manic episodes. So it will like slow you down, and you get depressed. Does it happen in your case?
Are you speaking to?
You all of you.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Okay, so let's say this problem. Wait. This problem with bipolar disorder is that when you are manic, you are taking meds to slow you down, and when you are depressed, you take meds SSRI to make you feel better, right? So does these meds like can make you manic or can make you depressed when taking it like too long?
Yeah,
Yes.
doesn't it like sort of push you towards a manic or a depressive episode?
Yeah, they're called inductive medicine. They
Mm-hmm.
tend to induct you to some state.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And do you take what do you take for manic episodes or hypomanic? Guys?
I don't take anything from manic episodes because, as I said, I'm bipolar type 2, and most of the time I'm feeling a depressive that episode. And my manic episodes, like, they have some gravity to it, like they have some issues, but they're not very of much concern. So I usually take only antidepressants, but I've took before medicines that would take care of it. But and other thing I forgot to mention, I have a sister, older sister that is also bipolar. She is bipolar type 1. She already took lithium, but she hates it. She already had a car crash while on effect of it. I don't know much about it, but she says she doesn't ever want me or anyone to take that medicine because of her experience.
Yeah, I heard lithium doesn't work for everybody. I never took anything for mania or hypomania. I'm on antidepressants right now, but maybe when mania hits me again, I will ask my doctor to give me something, because it was so exhausting, and this constant, state of being in elevated mood. Like I I couldn't sleep. I was overthinking one this business thing, and it was exhausting. Do you feel like tired after you are manic, guys?
Not at all. It's actually the opposite. I don't feel tired at all.
I mean,
barely sleep and I'm fine.
not during mania, but after you like.
After the episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Mhm.
I don't pay much
so
attention.
basically,
honestly.
is there like a calm down, like drugs, or
With
Kinda.
drugs,
Say.
yeah, with drugs or without drugs after the manic episode.
well, let's say you're completely sober and you have a manic episode.
Yes.
Do you feel exhausted afterwards?
Yes, but usually without any sort of medication, sleep is usually really not possible for me, at least. I mean, that's one reason why I went through a life crisis, was because I had asked my psychiatrist to help me off of a certain medication that I thought was not being beneficial for taking it for years. And basically, like, after it was being lowered every 100 milligrams, after I was completely off of it, I just couldn't sleep. I tried taking Benadryl and everything. I got to the point where I just abused opioids, like anti-anxiety medications, and I basically just fucked myself.
Oh, damn, man.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, if I'm manic and afterwards, I mean, if I'm medicated, yeah, sure, I'll go conk out, but if not, then that's not going to even be possible. You're basically in like a manic state for a week, sometimes more, so yeah.
Oh, and you Leaftist?
Well, like they were saying, when you're in that state, you don't get tired, but once the episode's over, especially if you crash straight into a depressive episode, then it all catches up to you. And, even if mentally you're still a bit up there, just the sheer physical fatigue does catch up to you.
I see. Yeah, I have the same. I just wanted to. I don't know many people with bipolar. I know you guys now. That's great. So we can share the experiences. I have one more question. Like I wanted to ask. I will have a couple more, but they are not so important. Do you get psychotic sometimes? Do you have bipolar with psychotic features?
I'm actually diagnosed with that, so yes.
Like
So,
you hallucinate?
yes, visually and auditory. It really depends on my state of mind, I guess.
Oh, can I ask you a question about that, actually?
Yes.
Like you experience hallucinations both visually and auditory. Do they like mix together, and do you get audio-visual hallucinations? Like
That's
one thing?
basically what they do, depending on, usually when you're coming off of any sort of like psychosis state, would say like a drug-induced psychosis state. Like I've abused like marijuana and LSD and shit like that before, and alcohol, of course. And it's like, if you're coming out of a psychosis state, or you're just manic, eventually, yeah, it's not like you're just gonna, like, for some people specific, it's like, oh yeah, somebody's just dancing on top of the Eiffel Tower or something. But for me, it's just more like, imagine you're like staring at a TV that's like really old and shit, and it's just like, like black and white and has all the bars. It's like you're watching a VHS tape or something.
Yeah.
And it's basically like looking at the world through that. And then eventually you'll start hearing voices. It's like they pretty much know something that you're really deeply trying to suppress. And then it'll just kind of mockingly just say something about it, or just make a random noise just to get to you. And then basically that starts creating delusions because of psychotic features. That's what it does. It's like you start suffering from auditory and visual, then it makes delusions. You become delusional, and then you become reclusive, and then you don't trust nobody.
Like I've had psychosis, but with me it was more like I knew that what I was hearing and seeing was bullshit. I knew it wasn't true.
It's called quasi or pseudo hallucinations, when you know that they are hallucinations.
Yeah, well, that was my experience with it. Like I was basically watching myself be weird, I guess.
Yeah, it's when you have psychosis and you get to know that you are psychotic, that's first step in healing, actually. So at least you didn't have it so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And Leaftist, are you having these psychotic symptoms?
To a mild degree. So, like I said before, sometimes I'll have somewhat paranoid thoughts. And like I said at that time, I know that they're irrational, even as I'm having them. And very rarely, like maybe once every couple months, I'll have maybe like a second or two of auditory hallucination.
Mm-hmm. So you
And
have,
that's about the extent of it.
so it's like mild, like not very severe. Thanks God, that's good, because psychosis is a bitch, I know.
Yeah, psychosis really scares me.
Yeah, like you can imagine, let's say you take too much psychedelic drugs or use too much stimulants and you don't sleep, you can have sleep deprivation, psychosis, hallucinations, like many people know.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I had basically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I still suffer from that type of stuff, and I stopped abusing drugs a long time ago. So it's like, yeah.
That's good for you, mate, when you have like, you know, everything is for everybody, but someone can have like predispositions for mental illness, and it might contribute to developing psychosis, like when you are using drugs and you are under big stress.
Yeah, those
So,
definitely only make things 100% worse. So
yep.
Yeah, basically what I did was I stayed awake for like 3 weeks,
Jesus
and
Christ.
that's how I got a psychosis basically.
Drug-induced psychosis, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That sucks. Cera. How about you?
Hey, I actually don't have psychotic, like those psychotic induced hallucinations. I had like one or two in my life. I do feel paranoid sometimes. I feel like I'm being watched. I feel like there's someone trying to get me. But hallucination visually and sound wise, no, I don't have those. But as I said before, my sister does have bipolar, and she's bipolar type 1, and she has a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's really hard to her because she usually get in a state that she doesn't want to hear anyone. She refuses to accept reality. The only reality that she knows is what she's seeing and what she's hurting. And it might be really hard for her. Uh, the only times that I remember that I had some deep hallucinations was with drug induced, but drugging in a sense of medicine, legal, and like taking Zolpidem or some sleeping pills. I remember seeing some things, but as I said, very mild, very,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not very dangerous type of hallucination.
That's good. You know, hallucination is one symptom of psychosis. You can also have delusions and paranoia. So, bad news, if you're paranoid, it might be anxiety driven, right? Right? Like, it doesn't have to be schizophrenia. But paranoia is psychotic. This is very similar to delusions of reference, that you have thoughts that everybody is like watching you, talking about you, like someone wants to hurt you, and that's psychotic. And but you don't have it bad, so you are lucky. You are very lucky.
You can also have OCD, right? Like I have a friend who was also diagnosed, and he told me that he had some OCD episodes sometimes. But I don't know. He maybe has both OCD and bipolar. They're not exactly connected.
Well, as you guys may know, I have autism, and autism is very similar to OCD in many respects. And I really relate to people who have OCD, and I think you can have OCD even while you have autism as well.
So Glenn, I will invite you to our next podcast with a guy who has OCD. Okay?
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, so you can start doing this podcast with me, like, you know, I can be my like
Your friendly neighborhood autist assistant.
Mój towarzysz.
Guess I was too slow to pick that roll up.
you can help me out too, guys. So that would be awesome. The more the merrier, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it's great.
now I want you to ask yourself questions like each other. Feel free to ask whatever you want and talk, like spiral the conversation
So
into.
you guys all have bipolar?
Yes.
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 Okay, I do not.
I actually have a question that I've been thinking about asking even before the podcast.
Yeah.
You all talked about having past relationships, like Leaftist said that he had a girlfriend back then. Sai also told me about his ex. How bipolar affects your relationship with people, like romantically speaking? Like, for example, I tend to not talk about it. I tend to almost hide it to a certain point, like only after months. It's something that I would tell because most people are usually scared or have some prejudice against it. Like they think because you have bipolar, some people think that you're a crazy person because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I had a friend who was dating a guy that was bipolar, and she experienced it as him basically like toying with her emotions all the time.
That sounds more like an unsocial behavior, not exactly bipolar. I mean, he could have both, but
No, but it was like because he was manic at some times and then depressed at other times, she would kind of like ride the roller coaster with him, and
all right.
it would affect her negatively. So that's why she thought, like in the end, that basically he was toying with her emotions. I didn't
But
really agree with her, to be fair.
But anyways, what I've wanted to ask, I think I derailed a question a little. How were your past experience with bipolar and relationships, and how is it?
Maybe Leaftist can tell us. Please, Leaftist.
Sure. So, for pretty much most of the time I've experienced this, I was just in one relationship. We first got together in high school and we were together until after university. As she was studying to go into the mental health field and then was working in the mental health field, she was much more understanding than I imagine the typical person would be. So
Yeah, one would hope
she was
that.
very supportive. She knew that this wasn't entirely within my control what I was doing. And we were actually engaged and we were going to get married, but unrelated circumstances led to the end of that relationship.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, sorry to
You know
hear
what?
that,
I
man.
understand her reasons for it. It had more to do with how my family treated her than anything between the two of us.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's horrible, man.
Wait. Sorry, can you repeat because I cut off? Last 10 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, so that relationship, there wasn't any inherent problems between the two of us. She was just being treated poorly by my family.
Yeah,
that's so. I mean, you have like a disorder and everything, and there's like a problem, and then you break up, and it's not even because of your problem. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That sucks. But Lift is like your girlfriend was like educated when it comes to like mental health, mental illness. She understood a lot, and she was supporting, right?
She was very supportive.
Well, that sucks that you lost her, but I wish that you will find someone and that your family will fuck off, you know. Sorry to say that, but yeah.
I think we all feel the same way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, but did she ever feel like you are toying with her, like people with partners who have BPD or ASPD feel?
Sorry,
Hello?
Yes.
was that a question for me?
Yeah,
That was a question for everyone, I think.
you and everyone. Lex,
I
Sai.
don't really understand the question.
Like people who have antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder tends to be manipulative. Mostly like ASPD are doing this on purpose, and people with BPD are just so emotional that they sometimes use these emotions like blackmailing, right? And does it happen with bipolar too? Like your partners think that you are using your illness like some kind of a card, like you can do whatever you want, like you can manipulate them.
Well, I mean, with having bipolar, I mean, I definitely do get like those thoughts, but it's like I feel like I have them suppressed. But then when I get manic, for instance, I'm not sure if I have them under control. Then you get on the verge of doing something like that, and then you got pretty close. But then you think to yourself, should I just go sleep it off, or should I actually go do it? So it's like it really depends, really, in your state of mind and whether you're manic or not. So, I mean, I wouldn't really know because I don't suffer from like, what was that disorder you had said before? It was like antisocial.
ASP, yeah.
ISP. Okay. It sounds a little similar to like IED, like impulse control or like explosive disorder. I forgot what it was exactly called. But yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say I have them, but it sounds very similar to my previous ex. But I mean, she was undiagnosed, if anything, to far my knowledge. But that was basically just a very toxic and abusive relationship. I had
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into too much detail because there's a bit too much detail within a short period of like almost 2 months. But I really had no choice but to end that relationship because I was evicted. I was homeless for a little while from my parents. I had really
God
no choice.
damn, man.
Yeah, moved to a very different chain of scene. Was affordable. In this state, I mean, I know that they take mental health a bit more seriously here, but we do have the highest suicide rate in the country here. But yeah, I honestly just don't know how to feel about that in general. But,
What, like about the high suicide rates, or?
no, just like anything in general, like that about those disorders. Even the suicide rates can be pretty much explained due to some of the conditions that people live here in here.
Yeah, I can imagine that the suicide rates here are a lot lower because we're sort of a social country and we really take care of people who are mentally ill here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what country you're from.
Glenn is from Belgium.
Belgium.
Western
Okay.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what part of America you're in. I mean, it's a huge country, so it's
it is a huge country.
so it depends state by state. Yeah.
Guys, we have very nice cast because we have like South American, Canadian, Western European, and I'm from Eastern Europe. So we have all covered almost, except Asia. We just need some Asian now.
Yeah, we need some Asian guy to help us out.
That's also Oceania.
What?
Oceania.
Oh, Oceania, right? Yeah, we have to invite.
So we need an Australian dude as well.
I know one guy who is Polish Australian. I might add him.
Polish Australian, that'll do.
You know him. PZG from the V4.
Oh, PZG, yeah, he's really nice.
Okay, never mind. Let's get back to the. Let's ask some more questions if you guys have any. Guys?
Well, I mean, can I ask more questions? I feel like asking questions.
It's fine.
Please go ahead.
Okay, well, like you guys sort of didn't really answer the question before. I feel like do you think that your borderline has affected
Bipolar.
relationship? Bipolar. Sorry. Do you feel like bipolar has affected your relationships negatively, or?
Very.
In some degree, depends on the person. Like, I feel like my sister, like, she's also bipolar. She's very understandable. My mom seems to finally being able to understand me. Dad's not very well in that regard, but he tries. But as back in the past subject about relationships, it's really hard because most of the people won't try to have the same understanding, or they just can't have those because their lives are different and they don't have the will to try to understand you. It is also kind of weird because back then, the last time I tried to enter in a relationship was with another bipolar girl, and I thought she was be more of understanding to me, but it was actually not. Was actually not. It was kind of like we are worlds apart from each other.
Oh,
Okay. Leaftist, if you want to add something, please.
Other than that relationship I mentioned before, I was only briefly dating someone else, and that didn't really go anywhere. We only met face to face maybe 3 or 4 times before we broke up. So that's not really anything I can gauge anything on.
yeah, you can't really take any information off of that, I guess.
Yeah. So you don't have much like. You had one girlfriend that was supportive, so she understood a lot, and this one, like this brief one, so I don't have much to say about it in my case because I had few boyfriends, and I got sick like 4 years ago, and I'm with my one boyfriend now, and he's very supportive as well, so it didn't really affect negatively my relationship. More like my pathological lying, because I was also diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. So that, but my schizoaffective disorder, bipolar plus schizophrenia, it's not so bad. In my
Really,
case.
you're also diagnosed with antisocial behavior disorder?
Yep.
Oh, I had no idea.
I was 19, and yeah, they diagnosed me. Later, my therapist diagnosed me with like with features of that, and like I'm not full blown like let's say sociopath like some people, but I have some tendencies.
Yeah, you have warped empathy as well. You told me about that.
Yeah, but that's for another podcast. Anything?
Yeah, sorry.
And no, don't worry. Yeah.
I kind of feel you, honestly. Like, I don't have mania and social behavior because I have a good understanding of empathy, but I do also have some pathological lying problems.
Yeah.
I tend to lie without noticing, and I lie a lot usually. I'm not saying that I've lied through this podcast. Actually, this is the time that I've been most honestly in some time.
Yeah, same.
That's really good. That's actually really therapeutic in some way.
But doesn't it feel a lot better when you're telling the truth?
Sometimes it feels, sometimes it's not. It's hard to explain.
It's nice
Like-
to be. It's nice to be fully like open and like honest sometimes, like in the podcast, or when you are talking with your loved ones. But sometimes lying is like it gives me adrenaline. It's like so fucked up.
Yeah.
I want to see how it will work out, how it will grow, how it will behave.
But Fridge, I've never felt like you were lying to me.
No, I wasn't lying to you even once.
Yeah, I didn't think that at all.
Because I respect you, and I don't see why. I mean, I respect my boyfriend. I lie to him, but how to get out of this situation now?
I put you into this, haha.
People with this
Yeah.
kind of lying issue tend to not lie very much to people, to loved ones and family. But the thing is,
Yeah.
as you said, we feel a lot of adrenaline. Like we want to see how want to push our limits and see how much far we will go. And the problem is sometimes we get caught up, and that may lead to really bad problems.
Yes, so that's not a bipolar thing, but I like this spiraling into different way, different conversation, different themes. It's fine, we can do that.
Sometimes I wonder if like when I'm imitating emotions, if I'm lying or not.
That's like...
It sounds like more of a philosophical question than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is philosophical. Sorry about that.
Okay, guys, do you have more questions?
No,
Same.
not really.
You don't have. Okay. Leaftist, do you have any questions?
Not really a question, but there wasn't really a cue for it to come up earlier in the podcast, but I feel like it is worth mentioning that I also have Aspergers.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so like you can have lots of diagnoses. I have several.
Then we'll be good friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been diagnosed with multiple things, but it's usually different diagnosed. I mean, when I was a teenager, it was suspected, and I was diagnosed with autism spectrum. However, when I moved here when I was 20, I was just turned 21, they basically ruled that out and just told me I was bipolar disorder type psychotic features. They had told me their explanation for this was because it's like it was a pretty long interview, and apparently it was like 3 hours or something. It was like an assessment with like a clinician actually it was like I believe, I'm not sure what they call it. It's not like a psychiatrist or a therapist, but basically like the person in the facility, kind of like the psych manager who does intakes. But it's like they just said that usually people who suffer from Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder kind of lack any sense of patience and tend to get a bit agitated if something was taking that long. So it's like if it's kind of an answer like paperwork.
Well, actually, I feel like it depends. Sometimes I can be very impatient about something, but other times I can be ridiculously patient. Like if somebody tells me, "Could you wait here for me?" Something like that, something really simple, then I could wait forever if somebody asked me to. But if I was waiting for myself, like for whatever reason I have to wait somewhere, like on a bus or something, then I'll be very impatient. Then I just will lose my shit.
Yeah, it's this. That's basically what they said. Tendency to get like agitated and stressed at a situation. That's just kind of part of life sometimes, unfortunately. But
yeah, I guess it is.
I don't know. I've always felt like been a very patient person in my life, so it's like it's kind of interesting to hear from police. So yeah, they told me my eye contact was also too good for that because they said people that also suffer.
Yeah, I can't look into people's eyes very well at all.
Yeah, and that's something I've never really had an issue.
And like
with.
I'm high functioning, so I'm not like autistic. I'm high functioning, so I'm kind of a normal person, I guess. And for me, it's still very, very difficult to look somebody in the eyes and like constantly do it,
Yeah. But it's like, for me, it's just like, I could have a staring contest for a day straight if good.
All right. We are almost finished, guys, because it's been like over 1 hour.
All right.
Can I have
always go so fast?
I wanted to ask if you have anything more to add, like send a message out there, tell something you wanted to say before. Yeah, everybody.
Actually, I had one last question that it's actually a more positive one because I wanted to end on a good note. Like, it's a question to everyone, but mostly to us that are with bipolar. What are you guys doing to move yourselves on life? Like, Are you doing? What are the things that you're passionate about and things that we usually do to make yourself feel better about your condition? And
Oh, that's a really good question.
I'm not sure. It's like I've been looking and trying to go into school and stuff for what I'm interested in, which is probably gonna be like computer engineering or something. And it's like, I just do a lot of stuff with like computers. Usually, I'm just like changing the components or something, or just enjoying nature or something. I don't know. It's just simple day stuff to try to keep yourself occupied.
I'm trying to having a routine, like I go to work, I go home, I record like video, audio or podcast. Then I try to get nice sleep and eat healthy. And I don't know, I'm trying to read a lot about various mental illnesses so I can have more control. The more I know, the more control I have. So that's that. And yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, exactly, it is. And you guys?
What you're doing with this podcast is actually a great service, and I respect that much.
We are doing together, so it's our it's our thing now.
I remember I said my podcast had so many views, and you were like, "No, our podcast."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question actually. Last one. Did you guys enjoy it? Did you feel better, or are you feeling the same? Or
I'm actually feeling quite better. It was being a good talk, like I said, kind of therapeutic.
I was really nervous going into this, but you know what? I enjoyed this.
I told you it will be fun, and over 1 hour passed so quick. I was checking the clock and I was like, okay, 20 minutes now, 40 minutes now, 1 hour.
I joined late, and for me, it's like we've been here for 3 minutes or something.
And you say, what are your experiences?
I'd say it was a good experience. I think like mental health needs to be taken much more seriously, so across the world.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's like it's something that people shouldn't be ashamed about. It's like if you have like problems with your heart or something, you go to the doctor for a hospital. It's like the same with your brain.
Yeah, and like people think it's obvious when it's your heart, but it's not obvious when it's your head. Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing to do. I kind of apologize for being as tired as I am. I have better responses and such.
No worry, it was great, and I will edit it a bit, so don't worry. And I have one thing to say. One more thing, that if you think that mental illness is a meme and that we should snap out of it, stop feeling so bad, then maybe I will stab you with my knife and tell you not to bleed so much.
Yeah, there's that antisocial behavior coming out.
Stability, stop. Yeah, so that's my message into the world. Okay, last word.
I'm really glad that I'm... Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. You go ahead.
Okay. I was just about to say that I'm really glad to be part of this podcast and meet you all. I sincerely hope that everybody can have great experience from now on, and having a good life and good communication with your loved ones. I just really hope that everybody goes okay after this, and myself included.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, man.
What you want to say, Glenn?
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining Fridge Inner podcast. It really meant a lot to me when I did the podcast on Aspergers syndrome. So I hope this means a lot to you guys, and that you'll be around for the next episodes.
Yeah. So thank you, Cera. Thank you, Leaftist. Thank you, Sai. Thanks, Glenn, again. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, I feel like I'm becoming like a plant or something that's always here.
You are my comrade.
I am your comrade.
Yes, tavarish. So if there is anyone who wish to talk with us privately, we have Discord server. You can ask me in the comments about it, so I can send you the link. You can join in and talk with these guys and me. So thanks again, guys, and bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hey guys! If you enjoyed my content, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications for more videos in the future. Thanks, bye! Cześć ludzie! Jeśli podobało wam się wideo, to zalajkujcie, zasubujcie mój kanał i włączcie sobie notyfikacje. To wszystko, dzięki, pa!